Greetings everyone, and welcome to our video about the heart of the intercessor. We will learn about the intercessor from Epaphras. He was a contemporary of Paul. We read about Epaphras in Colossians 4. Epaphras, who is one of you, meaning he is part of the church in Colossae and a slave of Christ, greets you. He is always struggling in prayer on your behalf. So two things. One is that term there, struggling, in the Greek is agonizomai. And agonizomai means to contend with an adversary in fight, and some translations will indeed have the word fight in the translation. And so we can see prayer can also be a fight. And we will see further on in the video what that really means. But also note that he is praying on your behalf. So if we do a little check on ourselves, we can ask ourselves, if we are praying for 100 minutes, how many of those minutes are our concerns and how many of those minutes are the concerns of others? We read about Epaphras first in Colossians 1. You learn the gospel from Epaphras, our dear fellow slave, a faithful minister of Christ on your behalf. So again, we have that on your behalf concept. So he is working not for himself, not for his own kingdom, but he is working on the behalf of others. And I believe it's in Colossians 1 where Paul writes, I have received this office for your good. So again, Paul is a minister. He's received a gift function, but not a gift function for building his own kingdom, but a gift function to build up others. Furthermore, he uses the term faithful minister, right? Why? Because they are unfaithful ministers. So the problems that we have today are the same problems that Paul ran up against when he was on planet Earth doing his work. Verse 9, for this reason I wish to pick on we a little bit. Now, we, at a bare minimum, involves Paul and Timothy, because Paul and Timothy are the writers of this epistle. However, I believe it is reasonable to say that Epaphras is also part of this we, because he had visited Paul. And if you look closely at the prayer that we are going to work through in Colossians 1, for it says here, we also have not ceased praying for you. The prayer there that Paul writes down in Colossians 1 is neatly summarized in Colossians 4 when Paul is talking about Epaphras. So I think it's fair to say, at a bare minimum, Paul is praying parallel to how Epaphras prayed, but it could be that Epaphras is one of the persons praying in this prayer that Paul has dictated for us. Asking God to fill you with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding. Continuing on, so that you may live worthily of the Lord and please him in all respects, bearing fruit in every good deed, growing in the knowledge of God. So this is Paul's prayer that at a minimum parallels what Epaphras is praying, but could be the very same thing that Epaphras prayed. Being strengthened, let's take a look at that word there, strengthened. The strengthened word there means dunamis from Greek, and it means force and specifically miraculous power, violence, and strength. So Paul and Timothy and presumably Epaphras are praying for the church in Colossae to have dunamis, okay? He is praying specifically that they have miraculous power. Now we'll take a look at that in a little more in detail in the following verses, but I want to emphasize here that when I first started praying for people, I would pray for myself that God would give me power to pray for the others. And at the first, I felt kind of strange praying for that, but here is the biblical justification for asking for God to give us dunamis to pray and work with others. Now, at this point, we can say that it is not only biblically justified, but it is our duty to pray for dunamis power when we are serving others and ministering others, but it is our right? It is our right to go to the throne of grace and say, God, I'm here. I want to work on your behalf. I want to minister to these people. I ask you to give me your dunamis power so that I can do something good for the people in front of me. Continuing on, joyfully giving thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the saints' inheritance. I think part of the inheritance is the dunamis power, right? God has now given us the right to have access to his power, and so we need to be praying for that. Verse 13 is the goal of what Epaphras and Paul and Timothy are praying about. He delivered us from the power of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of the Son he loves. Now there are two types of people that this verse refers to. One are those people whose lives or names are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. That is, they're not saved. Right? There are people who are not saved, and right now they're living under the power of darkness, and it is time for them to be transferred to the kingdom of the Son he loves, which is the kingdom of light. And so how does that happen? That happens through prayer. That happens through intercessory. That happens through laboring and fighting on behalf of others in prayer. So that is the first group. The second group are those people whose names are in the book of life, but unfortunately they're still living under the power of darkness. We Christians, we have somewhat of a dual citizenship. In the spiritual sense, we are in heaven, we're saved, but we also have a citizenship here on planet Earth where we live and breathe and we go about our daily lives. And so as long as we're on planet Earth, the devil is going to still try to get us. And even though in heaven, right, we are freed from the devil's grasp, as people that are still stuck on planet Earth, again, the devil does still get us, and we still have to be transferred from the power of darkness to and live out living in the kingdom of the Son he loves. In terms of, for example, sin. Is there a sin in our lives that has grabbed us and it's a habit and I can't break it? Well, we need the dunamis power to break that. Maybe the devil has made us sick and we need the dunamis power to be well. Maybe they have some mental issues. Maybe there are demonic entities working in our lives. And again, we need the dunamis power to work against that. So what I'm getting at is Paul and Timothy and Epaphras are praying for the dunamis power to break the power of darkness over our lives for those who are not yet saved and those who already are saved. Because as anybody knows, just because we've come to the knowledge of the salvation power of God doesn't mean that all of our problems are gone. That doesn't mean that we don't have sin we still need to get rid of. That doesn't mean that the devil's still trying to get to us in our finances, in our relationships, in our health, in our mental well-being, right? And so we want to make sure that when we pray, we know we're praying towards a specific outcome that is a deliverance from the power of darkness to the kingdom of the Son that he loves. Continuing on back in Colossians 4, we've already read verse 12, so let's begin in verse 13. For I can testify, this is Paul testifying about Epaphras, for I can testify that he has worked hard for you. Again, we have that for you. He's not working hard for himself. He's not working hard for his ministry. He's not building his ministry. He's working hard for the good of the others. And there again, we have some Greek, ponus polus, and that means to work much. Prayer, if it's done correctly, is going to be a lot of work, right? It's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a lot of work. So let's summarize, right? So travailing in prayer. If we are doing these things, we know we are praying correctly. And if we're not doing these things, maybe we need to change up what we're doing. First off, our prayer is a struggle and it's a fight, okay? Second, we need to pray for the dunamis, okay? It is our right and it is our duty, and we're not going to be good ministers without it. We cannot minister against the power of darkness without the power of God working through us. Paul talks about that. I encourage you to read it at the very end of chapter 1, the very first part of chapter 2. He talks about struggling. He talks about the power of God working in him mightily. So that's how Paul did it. He's our example, and this is how we have to do it. Our travailing in prayer, our goal is to transfer people from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light, and we also know that prayer is hard work. So if you're done praying and you feel like you're exhausted, that's a good sign that you did it correctly. As always, until then, shalom.